I'm your host, Vincent Sun, and this is my podcast. Good start. Just had a good meal.
Yeah, excellent meal.
Fucking fancy meal, I guess.
Yeah, in the time that I've been here, I'm trying to like adjust for like Atlanta prices to the Bay prices.
Yeah.
And here, I feel like I would have paid like for that meal that would have given a solid like $20.
$20 for that meal? Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was good. That was some fancy pasta.
That probably costed way less though. So
right.
That one's a special. That one I cook for anyone that I cook for the first time, because I feel like it's like your go-to. Like you gotta do the thing that like you feel like is gonna get the best reviews.
Grab their attention first.
Yeah.
Just like the first episode of Jujutsu Kaisen.
Oh, you're getting into it already.
Perfect segue.
So I'm sitting here with Emmanuel, and we met like literally a couple
weeks ago.
Yeah. At a friend's birthday party. And don't worry, it was outside. And he's new to town, right? So like, give me a little bit of your spiel right now.
So, hi, I'm Emmanuel. I moved here September 2nd to start a position at Stanford SLAC, the national lab, the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center. And my first day was September 8th, I believe, the Tuesday after Labor Day. And when I was on site, doing trainings and stuff, the sky was yellow. And I was like, this is interesting. California's been pretty cool so far, but this is a little off-putting, Armageddon. And yeah, I've just been enjoying quarantine and, the California lifestyle and work since I've been here. So I'm definitely not a Californian yet. I wouldn't call myself one, but I've been here for like 3 months and I'm getting used to the vibes, the energy. What's
like for you the most surprising part of being a part of this culture versus what you had in Georgia?
I'd say two main things. One, it's not that bad here. It's kind of like the wave.
The sky is orange.
That was pretty cool. I was like, oh, this is pretty dope.
Am I in a music video?
Right, yeah, exactly. But people really like to shit on California, like as far as I can tell from like the East Coast. Like, people were like, oh, taxes and fires and earthquakes. And I'm like, yeah, those things happen, but like, it's not that bad. Like, I really like the area. And you can go like 2 hours in any direction here and you can do literally anything on the planet. There's skiing and there's surfing, rock climbing, hiking, mountains, and just great food. The layout of the city and the bay itself is great. There's like downtowns in succession. Whereas in Atlanta, if like you go outside of Atlanta, there's nothing like boonies and like trailers and tractors and those kinds of people.
I met like one of my friends I met up with, and he went back home to Maryland for a little, and he was telling me that like we were at a park in San Francisco, and it was like at nighttime, and it was like beautiful and everything, and he was just saying like, yeah, in where I come from, like the corner store is the only thing that we have, like to hang out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And also just like, the Stanford area is weird. I was going to hang out with some of the first year grad students.
Yeah.
And I parked my car like a little off campus.
Yeah.
And I was just like, like it was nighttime and I had like a bag full of alcohol and I was just like walking in the night, like going to campus, and there were just like a bunch of moving figures in the dark, which was so off-putting because like when that happens normally, you should kind of have your guard up. But for me, it was just a bunch of old people like jogging at like 10 p.m. like the world was theirs, and it's so like disorienting. Like,
I mean, that whole peninsula area, like where Stanford is and everything, it's so
bizarre to say.
Polished and curated and just this like ideal version of suburbia, right? I've always been a city kid. Like fortunately, I'll say that like I've lived a life where I've been able to be in like major cities kind of.
Yeah.
And that has definitely shaped how I've thought of things and everything. So when I first came to America, because I came from Canada, and when I first came to America, like it was just such a culture shock to see like just rows and rows of the same houses. And I was like, how do you live in this? Like how does one even like foster creativity or a sense of self?
No such thing here. They just strip you of all of your individuality and tell you to be a part of the system. You're just another cog in the in the mechanism. It's great. We love it.
You started off positive. Now we're going to the shitter.
Right. So the other thing that I've noticed about here versus Atlanta, or I guess the East Coast, is we were talking about this earlier, that there's an absence of hospitality. People are a lot less social here, and albeit, I'm here during COVID, so I'm going to be a little bit biased, but I still have noticed people aren't as willing to, interact with strangers or be as like friendly with people they don't know. And they're a lot, which like partially makes sense. This is a tech hub. Tech is like typically associated with nerds, and nerds aren't the most social people inherently. And so I feel like a lot of that has sort of bled into the personalities of people here. And the nature is to be just, non-confrontational and, kind of keep to your own. Like if I don't know you, I don't know you unless I've met you through someone else. While I was in Atlanta, it was like a hobby of mine to just straight up talk to strangers. Like I could just go to like, Atlantic Station or like Buckhead or like the park. I could be like, oh, I like your shoes. And they'd be like, oh, thank you. I got these from blah, blah, blah. Boom, conversation, stranger. You never know what you're going to find. It's like Pandora's box.
Yeah, there's no serendipity here. There's no serendipitous moments. Like you'll find them maybe like, at a dinner party or at some other function. Like before COVID, it used to be a big thing for people. Just like all the tech companies would have like winter parties, like holiday parties and stuff like that. So we're coming around this time pretty much, and people would meet each other through those kind of corporate events.
But like, you have to get invited to those.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very like cliquey kind of culture, and there's definitely a whole other side to San Francisco that I haven't been able to really grasp, which is this like indie hippie like crazy kind of side to it that is there. Like,
I want to.
It for sure is there. It's like I visited. I mean, the closest thing in the tech realm to that are like probably like hacker houses, where it's just like a bunch of engineers and young professionals and just people that want to like build stuff living together under one roof. It's the common area is super messy and like, but like there's still this sense of like just kind of scrappiness and like making art together and doing drugs together, like all that stuff.
Something that I was told is that nitrous is like a thing here. Like, what? Like, what?
They're called whippets. I know that they're called other things in other areas. But I haven't done one. But apparently it's just like a disassociative. Like I heard like, that the the founder of Zappos or whatever, Tony Hsieh, apparently like Forbes wrote an article that he allegedly, just did that all day.
Shit.
Like, he just did that all day. But I know that that's really bad for your brain.
Like it
actually like severely affects it.
Damn. I want to try it once though.
Yeah.
Just bucket list,
I feel like for drugs, my policy is to kind of know them, understand them, understand them to a degree where, if someone were to have something at a party or whatever, like you would
don't just take it.
Don't just take it, ask questions.
Right.
Like, we all have those friends that just like fucking take it. Right.
Like, dude, do you want some of these? Yeah.
I was like, what is it? Drugs, they'll make you feel good and they just take it.
I've seen some people who don't even like ask questions. They're just like, thanks, free. Like they just eat it.
Yeah, it's insane to me. And I feel like MDMA, cannabis, whatever, like all these LSD, shrooms, like
have you done acid?
Whatever it is. Yeah, I have. And I feel like I like things that take you out of like where you are. Like it's not real. Like it's not for me. It's not so much of an escape, but it's like, it just adds flavor. It allows you to see a different perspective, And
like
I think
putting a lens on
a filter,
right.
a filter of reality, and reality certainly is a filter itself, right? And I think when you take these things, it's fun, it's awesome. You know, when you're doing it with friends, like there's a great bonding experience, especially when you're out in nature and you feel good. The place and setting is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, that's amazing. You know, there's nothing that can explain that type of euphoria and also loss of self, loss of the ego.
I've yet to. Every time I
really?
take, if anything, I feel like I come back with like more in tune with my ego. I mean,
No, same here. But I think I'm just saying that
for the duration of the
for the duration of that trip, if you're with people, there is this like, for me individually, I haven't experienced that group kind of thing. I think for acid, I'm similar to you probably. I am more in tune with my ego. I'm more in tune with all the bad stuff, all the good, not so much like good stuff, but just all the qualities to myself. And yeah, your mind is in this cycle of just like constantly being in this kind of third person looking at yourself perspective.
It forces you to like, be a lot more self-critical.
Have you had like a bad trip?
No, but the first time I tripped, I actively was pursuing like an ego death and a bad trip. Cause like it was like maybe like the 6th hour, and I was like, this is so awesome, but like I want to get the most out of this experience. And I was like, I'm gonna go take a shower, you guys, because we had just gotten back from the park, and it was like hot. It was in the summer, and I was like, I'm gonna go take a shower. I'm gonna start thinking some bad thoughts, track on me, and they were like, okay. And then like I had a friend who was babysitting, so he was like, yeah, okay, sounds good. And I'm just in the shower, I'm just like thinking of like, I don't know, things that make me upset or like being super self-critical, and like it felt like my arm was being like bent, and like my mind just wouldn't let me like think those things. Like anytime I like raised an idea or like a proposition, like this makes me feel some type of way, immediately like some part of my brain, whether it be logic or emotional, would just be like, no, denied. Like you're fine. This is just who you are. This is a part of life. This is just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, I honestly believe that like yes, there are times where it gets bad, and there's definitely some stigma around a bad trip, right? Like, but I think that to me it's not a trip if there isn't some bad, and that's I never really understood why it was called a trip before I tripped. But after doing it, like you truly understand that, oh, there's a beginning and an end, and it's like a journey of self discovery and also self. I don't know. It's just like it's something. It's strong, and it allows you to really introspect when you need to. It definitely, like, the fun parts for me, because whenever I take a drug, I feel like I always have kind of this scientific brain kick in where I'm trying to like really see like, oh, how does it do when so like I pull out my phone when I was tripping, and like I see like all the letters moving and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, well, this is insane, like this is so cool that there's this visual, and for me, I feel like when I've taken drugs, the visual stuff, the hallucinogenics and stuff, like they don't really hit me that as hard, but definitely when I was tripping, I was like, oh, cool that like all these things are actually changing in my vision.
Yeah. So for me, like before I decided to trip acid for the first time, I kind of got tired of hearing like all these opposing like thoughts. People were like, no, shrooms is like this, and some people were like, no, just take like psilocybin. And some people were like LSD, and like they had all these different experiences, and they were all subjective. And so what I did is the scientist in me just took a look at like what's happening to you physiologically. And I watched like some videos and read some like articles about like, the LSD molecule, what it does, and the serotonin receptor, how it gets like lodged into the receptor. And like the brain just tries to dissolve the LSD molecule. And the reason why the trip is so long is because it's just constantly like firing off that receptor because it's like jammed in there, and it takes a long time to get rid of it. You're just constantly getting jerked off, or like, and so I liked the idea of that versus like what's happening to you physiologically, like with shrooms or like psilocybin. And I don't know, it could have been like placebo, but I just really liked acid and kind of like stuck with that. And I definitely agree with you in the sense that there is a journey. I wouldn't say I've had like a bad trip. I wouldn't classify it as a bad trip, but like I've had like some times where, I don't know, what would you define like as a bad trip? Because for me, it's like I have a bad time anytime I feel like I've lost control. And every time I've been on acid, I've been in control. So every time I've inherently had a good time.
I think a bad trip, as described by others, is when you like really want it to end. Like you really want it to stop. And it's super anxiety, and you're in a kind of like a manic state. Like and a real, I feel like the one that's marketed more is like you kind of come out of it like permanently like fucked up.
Right.
Like I think that's like the true bad trip. I know, and I've heard of stories where that's happened. I've also heard of stories where after the trip, people just completely like pivot in life. They just like are like, okay, I need to do this instead of what I'm doing now.
I think everyone should do acid.
And I think that's beautiful as well. I think with drugs and everything, my lens is that the pill itself, the like, molecule itself, like that's
evil.
That's not evil or good or whatever.
It's neutral.
It's just what it is. It is what it is. And what happens is the user, right? Oh, do you mind if you just like close that window? You gotta.
Yep.
Yeah.
My degree at Georgia Tech just helps me figure out windows. Big brain.
Wait, so tell me more about how you ended up interested in sciences in general. Like, because I know physics, we'll talk about physics, right? But I think the fundamental curiosity as a child in the sciences, like when that first kind of hit you, like, oh, like this kind of stuff, like I kind of fuck with, like, yeah.
I feel like for most people, where we go in life is sort of, it's highly based off of like our experiences early on. And so a lot of people like to follow in the footsteps of their parents, or they go in the complete opposite direction of their parents if they didn't have like, the greatest interest in what their parents did, or if you had like a bad teacher early on, that'll steer you away from a subject. But if you had a really great teacher in a subject early on, that'll, make you gravitate towards that subject. And for me, my parents aren't scientists or anything. They just really wanted me to, they just, encouraged like education, and they were like, it's important, and just find something that you like, And I had a really good experience with like science teachers early on, and it helped me get through like awful science teachers later on in like high school. I think the first one was in my elementary school. We didn't have science classes. We had a science lab, and it was the same teacher every like year, and he would just go over different like subjects.
Yeah.
And he was so cool. He had like magnets and like foam and like just cool stuff like in his like lab. We would like go to his classroom and like we would watch Bill Nye and stuff and like, do the cool stuff. We would do experiments and stuff, and he just got us really excited about it, and that stuck with me. And then in middle school, I had like great science teachers, and I just started to do my own research, and it sort of like shaped me into who I am. I guess that's like the simple answer.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a moment where I was fascinated. I think the most memorable experiment for me was just the volcano.
The volcano, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that is the one thing. And then the Coke and Mentos thing caught on as well. But that was a lot later, I feel like, than when I was a child. And that's when I feel like I never had a great science educator though. I feel like I missed out on that.
They're rare. Because if you think about it, like if you're good at science, like, you're probably not going to be like a middle school teacher in like Georgia or like, I don't know, Montana or something, you're going to be doing something else. And so, I mean, that just goes back into the huge like education problem America's dealing with. But we'll focus, we'll stay on track with it.
No, I mean, we can talk about, but I think you landed on something that I do feel like is something that we both resonate on, which is like science communication. And like, how do you communicate really high order theories and other things, and complicated like functions and problems in like a simple, digestible manner. It doesn't have to be short, but it has to be in a format where
that everyday person could understand
Yeah.
it, or even someone with
someone or like it
experience.
inspires, right? I think the big thing about science communication for me is, you know, it's not going to give you the whole thing, because the whole thing takes hours and hours of being in the library,
Right.
like studying and understanding the foundation. But it allows the audience to kind of come in and be like, oh, like this is relatable. This is something like there's some sort of thing that I can apply to in my life, and at the same time, I'm inspired to like dig deeper into it.
Right. I think that's the important part. You have to give them the tools to like sink their teeth in, and then once they leave, they can continue to pursue that thing on their own individually. And a lot of the time, if anything, like when I've talked to some higher ups about like even physics, like I feel even less inspired. They'll say some things, and I'm just like even more lost than like I was to begin with. And I'm like, you're having the adverse effect. And I feel like it can manifest itself like in a lot of ways, like other than, well, it does a lot of ways other than just physics. Like I'm sure anybody who's, you know, been to like school can relate to like, you know, talking to like a professor, right? Or having like a professor and he's teaching the class or she's teaching the class, and like just them not being good at explaining the material and it's like half of your job, at least for me in physics. Like, you know, they're researchers and as well as like lecturers, and you know they put all of their XP points, for lack of a better word, in the like research aspect, but they still get hired as like a lecturer because it's a part of the job description. They just don't care. And I don't know, it really frustrates me to think that like if you care about the topic and you just kind of like want to die with your science, if that makes sense. Like if you're not working on getting people up to speed with the things that you're doing, do you really care about the thing that you're doing? Like,
I feel like some questions as a teacher that you're revisiting, like you will catch yourself going like, hey, I actually like don't really fundamentally, like you might know this like subject really well, but you really like sometimes you'll catch yourself going like, actually I don't actually fundamentally understand how this calculation actually works. Like I've always just done it through the calculator, or I've always just kind of
taking it for
granted, and you never really looked into the actual thing. And that's really hard. I feel like once you get to that level and you're trying to explain to students at that capacity, you know, that is, you know, I would say mastery. True mastery is when you like really understand the principles and the underlying kind of foundation behind like the simple stuff.
And I think that's one of the benefits of being an educator, that like it makes you, I mean, I tutored physics and math in like undergrad and high school. And there were so many times where like someone would come in with like a problem, and I'd be like, yeah, I know physics one, I know mechanics, right? And they'd come in with a problem and be like, wait a second, actually, wait, I don't, you know, this one's actually giving me some trouble. Let me think about it. And I think and if you're able to explain something, it just really shows that you really know the subject even better. It helps you. It's helpful for both sides. You're both learning something. And I don't know, it's like sort of not as popular as it should be, because it's a great thing to do.
Who was your worst student without naming names? And is there any funny stories around that?
One time, this girl, she was like a nursing student, and she came in, and she was like, it was like April. She was like, I have like my third exam and then like finals, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can help you out, right? Because I you know really liked it. I was super enthusiastic about it, and you know I'm like, do you have any practice problems or like a practice test or homework? And she's like, yeah, I have a practice exam. I'm like, all right, let's get started. And so we start. Like this first problem she shows me, I'm like, all right, do you know Newton's second law? And she's like, no. I'm like, fine. Most people don't know it by name. I'm like, it's F equals, I'm like nudging. And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, F equals M times, she's like, I don't know. I'm like, F equals MA. And she's like, what is that? And I was just like, get out. I was like, I can't help you. It's April. Like, if you don't know that, like, I know this professor, they're going to like, fuck you. Like, you're not going to have a good time.
Wait, this was in college?
Yeah, this was in college. This is April. Like the semester ended in like 2 weeks. Like, there's nothing I can do to help you at this point. This was like a pretty basic problem too. Like I would love to help you out, but like this is beyond me at this point. I was like, what did you do for the first 2 exams? And she was like, cheated. And I was like, okay. And like then I can't teach you a semester's worth of material. Like,
weren't you at Stanford? Weren't you at Stanford?
No, this was at Georgia Tech.
Oh, at Georgia Tech. Oh, got it.
Yeah, so I did my undergrad at Georgia Tech.
But Georgia Tech is also like really legit.
Yeah.
Like it's
I think a lot of stupid
one of the
people,
best technical schools.
I think a lot of stupid people go to Georgia Tech, but that's a hot take. I don't think it's like, I think it's a hard school, and then also the people who are admitted aren't like admitted based on like their own intellectual capabilities. I feel like a lot of the students are admitted based on like legacy, or if like they have a relative who's like an employee or previously went there. There's a lot of like fraternity. Greek life is huge there. It's massive.
I didn't know that.
It's huge. Like at least a third of the campus is just like frat and sorority houses. Like it's huge there. And so like if your dad was in this frat you're in, if you have like at least a 3.0 and you have a relative who's like went to school there, you're in.
What was life like at Georgia Tech? How do you describe Georgia Tech?
Miserable.
Miserable.
Damn. So you said you liked Hunter x Hunter, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember. I use this scene as like an example a lot. When I'm talking
for those
to my friends.
that don't know, we had a conversation earlier around Hunter x Hunter. It's an anime. Go check it out. It's pretty cool. It's
on Netflix, I think.
What is it? What's the plot? Basically,
the kid looking for his dad.
Yeah, kid with daddy issues. Dad is this super powerful hunter that hunts monsters, and they have like superpowers and everything. And he goes on this journey to try to find his dad. And along the way,
a lot of stuff happens.
Takes on a bunch of friends, and lots of fights and other stuff. But yeah, it's cool. You should check it out. But continue, go on.
There's a scene where they're like in the like battle tower, and like it's Gon and Killua, and they're like trying to get to the next level, and Hisoka is there, and he's just like his like aura is just like preventing them from like walking forward.
Yeah.
And that's what it was like walking onto campus every day. Like there's no better way to explain it. Like it genuinely felt like there was a cloud over campus, and like it's like smack dab in the middle of like the city. Like it's just, like you went outside like now in SF, and like it's just in the city, and it's just a sectioned off campus. And like when you walked on campus, you could just feel like the gloom and doom. You could just see people crying. Like you could just see people like passed out on like stairs, like in the library. It was just this awful atmosphere, and people were just always in pain. Like there's the tradition of like weeding out students in like early on classes, but I feel like that was more of like maybe like a couple decades ago. It was way more prominent then. Now the schools have gained more popularity. They don't need to do that as much. You're just admitted. There are selective schools now. But Georgia Tech kept this tradition of doing weed out classes. And in fact, they amplified it. So like the culture there is just to make you have a bad time. But because most students are engineers, they don't really like pursue things like a graduate degree, or don't really like need to care about their GPA. They just need to like, have skills and quality. So they just beat the hell out of you. and you like come out like, if you do come out, if you manage to survive, you come out like pretty well equipped, but it's like at what cost? Like the suicide rate there was like disgusting, and like they don't release any of it, and like kids just started like killing themselves on campus so that they could have like their voice heard. And yeah, it was
that is deep and dark.
Yeah, it took a turn, just like Hunter x Hunter. Check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I actually worked in this area of kind of campus safety a lot, and yeah, there's a thing called the Clery Act that like protects schools from or it basically anything that happens on campus, the school has to report to the police, and they have to disclose it in this PDF file or whatever that students can check. But then if it happens off campus, it protects the school completely.
Right.
And they're absolved from any kind of responsibility. And that is something that, especially with Title IX, I believe it's called, and like sexual assaults and all, and suicides and all that kind of stuff. That is, that protects the school from a lot of that. Make sure that the reputation of the school stays intact. But definitely the mental health of students, I feel like especially big public schools and stuff like that, they don't care.
They don't care in
They
the
don't
slightest.
care at all. I feel when my first like big like I'm in college now moment was when I literally I think I just had like a fever, like really bad, like super super bad. Could not get up to take the quiz or something, and then I like emailed the graduate student instructor like, hey, like I'm like feeling really bad, and it's like, okay, I don't care.
Right? Yeah.
So I mean, hopefully you make it to the next quiz.
Right.
And I'm like, damn, this is brutal. This is cold. But that was my first semester, freshman year.
Jesus.
So I was like, I'm fine. Okay, I guess this is where I need to cut it. And Berkeley was intense. We had like 2,000 to 3,000 student classes for the first CS introductory class, computer science class, and like in that class, like no one cares about you.
Yeah.
Like it's just you fend for yourself with your friends, and you fight to get into, and once you get into the upper levels, upper division, you fight to get into those classes a lot of the time because it's like there's limited spots. The school doesn't have that many teachers to teach.
How was like competition at Berkeley? Like I'd imagine like being in the Bay Area, there's like a lot of pressure to be, a genius or successful, and then like in a major as large as CS, like did other undergrads, were they like nice or like assholes or?
I mean, Berkeley's so big that I feel like you could find pockets of good and bad. You know what I mean? And I feel that there's definitely a competitive nature to Berkeley. I mean, the students that I've met there are typically all like really smart. Most students. I think you can say that about most colleges. Like I think most students, you can find the smart people. And Berkeley was no exception. And I think there was a difference between people that were like really smart and people that were like really kind of career oriented for me. I've really smart could fall into like liberal arts, could fall into like all this other stuff. But the career oriented people were the most competitive, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because they were like fighting for, the FANG offers, the investment banking, consulting, all those kind of like big jobs that immediately after you graduate, you command like a 6-figure salary or close to it. So that kind of community, I had one step in and one foot out, kind of. Some of my immediate friends fall into that circle a little bit, but yeah, I feel like especially at Berkeley, so big. It's just such a huge school. Like you really get pushed into trying to find your own tribe, because if you don't find your own tribe, like you're just really lonely, I feel like, at the end of the day. So if you're not into partying, if you're just like constantly, and if you don't love what you're studying, which is a big factor, I feel like, in academia, and you're not going out to clubs and you're not trying to actively, find those little niche pockets where you can vibe with the people, you're just going to be like really lonely and feel as if like you're, one fish out of the many in the ocean that are there. I for one have never felt very smart at all. I've always adopted the notion of like being smart by osmosis, being the stupidest person in the room and just gathering as many like smart people that you look up to as possible, and in that way they can school you. So for me, it worked out well. Like I felt like everybody that I met was valedictorian at this school or whatever, and I was like, wow, okay, like I don't know your school because I'm from Canada, but like, valedictorian, that seems like you worked hard in school. And some people are, you definitely get, I feel like in every school you get the people that are like really, 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 really smart, and they don't even need to be competitive. And I don't know, maybe that happened for you at Georgia Tech as well. Like, but I don't know, my undergrad experience wasn't, My undergrad experience at Berkeley was for sure very cliquey
Yeah.
because of how big it was. I didn't feel like I was able to grasp the whole community. And to some senses, I'm okay with that because I feel like you're so busy trying to like get through classes and everything that at the end of the day, you only have so much time, especially if you love what you're studying, you only have so much time to like interact with people and socialize. Yeah.
Yeah. Georgia Tech was also cliquey. I feel like it was like Tartarus. Like people were just like it was war. Like people would like sabotage and lie and like cheat and steal just to get like an upper hand. So there was not really much of a sense of community, at least for me. And I feel like that's a lens that's not just physics. Like it just, if anything, I feel like it was more prominent in like bigger majors like CS or mechanical engineering. People would just like fight to get to the top. And so most of my friends were like at other schools or from high school. And I was fine with that.
Hey, I mean,
I just focused on me and like got the hell out. And now that I have my degree from there already, I can shit talk as much as I want, and it's so great.
What made you choose Stanford?
I actually went to a conference. It's a funny story. So back in November, I went to a physics conference in Rhode Island, and I was presenting a poster from a research project I had done at Duke. And so the poster was on this this particle accelerator we were building from scratch, like in like it was like a garage-esque feel. Like we were just building this Pelletron accelerator from scratch, and my project was just to get it working again and prove that it worked, make like a makeshift detector for it, and just optimize its energy output before the summer was in.
And explain what a particle accelerator is.
So a particle accelerator is a machine that takes could be any charged particle, so an electron, positron, proton, or sometimes ions, and it accelerates it down a column through any mechanism. It could be like a RF, a cavity. It could be just an electrostatic field. There are electrodynamic particle accelerators, but there are all kinds. There are like a bunch of different like types, like Pokemon. But like the point is, it takes a particle and it accelerates it like really, really fast to high energy, and it can either be slammed into a static object. It could be slammed into another particle, or it could be accelerated to a point where when you take it to a set of magnets called undulators or wigglers, it produces the electron starts to like shit out X-rays, and then you have an X-ray laser. But there are a bunch of different applications or avenues. But this one in particular, it was just we were just making an electronic accelerator that we could use for the future calibration of silicon detectors. So we just wanted an electron that we could slam stuff into. But I was presenting this poster and I was like talking about my project, and it's a poster session. I was like, I had my water, I had like my suit on, and I was like, yeah, so as you can see here in this graph and blah, 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 blah. It was cool. And a couple people came up to me. One guy came up to me and he was like grilling me. He was like, so what about this? Do you know about blah, 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 blah? And I was like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Because my previous boss for this project was like this bigwig from Princeton. So like he grilled me the entire summer, so I was ready. And so this guy who was grilling me at the poster session, I clapped back like hard, and like I would ask him questions and he would like clap back. And then like at the end we had this mutual respect, and he was like, have you ever heard of Slack? And I was like, no. What's that? And he was like, it's a Stanford Linear Accelerator Center. You should check it out. And I was like, okay, cool. And I like tell him bye. And I don't look it up at all. And I see him later in the night at like the hotel bar. And like I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And he's like, hey, did you ever check out Slack? And I was like, no, you said Stanford, so I ignored you. Like that's a bit above my pay grade. I like straight up like I did not look this thing up. Yeah. And I ordered my drink, and he just was looking at me. He was like, I'm a recruiter, dude. And I was like, oh. And here we are. And so I got this fellowship position, and now I'm an employee for a year long. I'm applying to grad schools now. Yeah, that was like the first time I did accelerator physics, and I really liked it. And I just kept looking more and more into it and fell deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. It was some cool shit.
Yeah, and just to explain in kind of my terms, a particle accelerator, basically you smash things really fast so that you can get really tiny things. You can observe really tiny things that come out of that one big thing
for a fraction of a second.
For a fraction, and it takes a picture.
Yeah,
for a fraction, and the math and everything that goes into taking that picture is insane.
Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of there's so many like applications. Like you can have
you made a DIY particle accelerator.
Pretty much.
Can I find this on Pinterest?
I have some pictures of it. So since I've left, they upgraded it and gave it like, before it was like this. It was in this tint, right? And we would just constantly fill it with like nitrogen gas, like dry nitrogen, so that there was no.
Is this easy to do or no?
No, I wouldn't say.
Doing a DIY accelerator. It's not like a 7-year-old science fair project.
No, you could. There are like devices like that can accelerate particles. That you could like DIY. I looked into that for like science fair in high school, but I was like, I don't feel like funding this. But yeah, this was like, it was like maybe the size of like a pretty big fridge, and like it was on like a stand that was maybe like 3 feet high, and it was just this huge tint, and we would fill it with nitrogen gas because you couldn't have like water vapor there. We were using nitrogen as a dielectric, so it just needed like an insulating gas. And if you had water vapor in the tint, the accelerator would like spark and like shit itself. You just had this giant tent, and it was just it was like covered. It was filled with like nitrogen gas, and you had the accelerator like running inside of this tent. And that was pretty much it. You had some like filament at the end of the beamline, and it produced this potential difference, this voltage drop, and like the particles would be ripped off of the like filament. So kind of like in a light bulb, like a tungsten filament. It would just be ripped off of the tungsten and just like fly down the beam line, and then go into like the whatever we're shooting it at. And most of the time we were just shooting it at nothing. We just wanted to see if it was there. So I ended up making like a makeshift detector just to like prove that there is a beam, and that was the like success. We were like, whoop, whoop.
And you used to work for some bigwig at Princeton?
So that guy who runs that lab at Duke, he was like faculty at Princeton for like a decade, and now he's at NC State / Duke, just doing like all kinds of shit. Like this guy's like a mad scientist. He's like Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. If Miss Frizzle was like a 60-year-old like white man who like looks like he does cocaine, like like this guy's just always like.
Yeah, sounds
fucking awesome.
Legit. Sounds legit.
I love him to death. Like he's great. But
Wait, so why do you love physics so much?
That's a loaded question. It's a compilation of a lot of things. Like I said, like I had a good experience with it early on in elementary school, and then my 8th grade physical science teacher was also awesome. She had like periodic table toms and just like all kinds of gadgets around the place. And also like when you're young, like who doesn't like things that they're good at? You know, I noticed like in school, like I just had an affinity for math. Like I was always like dicking around in math class because I was just done. Like I was ahead of like whatever we were doing, and science just always captivated me. And so like it was a combination of all those things. And then I just was watching like Vsauce growing up, Veritasium, 60 Symbols, like all these YouTubers. Was reading wiki articles more and more and more, and I don't know. I was like, this stuff seems pretty dope. And the more I like read about it or learn about it, the more invested I get.
Also, 10 of the greatest mysteries and blue blobs that fall out of the sky.
I definitely have a habit of getting down the rabbit hole with things on
the conspiracy YouTube hole.
Yeah, but it's not a conspiracy. It actually happened. So there was this.
Okay, explain to people what we're talking about first.
There's this phenomenon, or an event, better yet, called the Oakville blobs. And like in the 90s, I want to say it was like 94. In 94, these blobs fell from the sky, literally just like the size of like maybe like a quarter. Just these jello, like clearish blobs were just raining in Oakville. And just people started getting sick. And like for like 2-3 weeks, like everyone was sick, and like if you touched them, you just get like horribly ill. and like people's cats were dying and stuff, and like just the city was like ruined for like almost a month basically. And people started like inspecting like these blobs, and they found like white blood cells in them, and more people started like falling ill and coming forth and saying like, yeah, we saw like a lot of like air traffic like a few days prior to this, and then like one day, like when it was like cloudy, just these blobs started falling. And like the more you like look into it, the more you're like, wow, the government was doing something like suspicious. Like what that doesn't happen naturally, and just no one talks about it. And this actually was a thing. Does that not freak you out? Like that's not interesting?
As a physicist, what do you like can you even?
It's not a question of like this isn't a natural phenomenon. One. So this was manufactured. This was intentional, or maybe it was an incident. But either way, like the existence of these blobs were intentional. So that's like immediately I'm not like questioning things like supernatural or its validity. It happened. Who was in charge of it? That's like the scary part to me. Like, and the fact that no one's like this just was lost in time. And there are probably tons of things like that where we just don't talk about them anymore. And if people try to talk about them, they get shut up. They get Epstein. They get.
Oh, we don't talk about that on air. The 3-letter words are gonna come for us now. Yeah, I mean, the government always, all governments, all nation states do shady stuff. And, like if you think about it, like you have all this territory, and you can just do stuff, behind closed doors. And you don't have to report it. In the U.S. obviously there's a lot of like media rights and laws and stuff like that, and journalistic kind of integrity, which I think is missing these days. But those. I mean, I think if you want to hide something, it is you can keep it. You can keep it hidden. That's for sure. You just don't talk about it.
Would you join the Illuminati?
If I had the opportunity to join the Illuminati,
I would join in a heartbeat.
Oh, of course.
I would.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
What if your initiation was like something super heinous? Like heinous. Dark web, like
something really bad.
Really bad.
That
like
you'd have to like stomach.
Trafficking humans, like just I don't know, just some really messed up stuff to like so they can like know you're legit. Like,
I mean that sounds right. I mean, if you're trying to recruit me right now.
Also, disclaimer. So I know I was preaching about like science communication earlier. I don't want to spend like the entirety of this podcast explaining.
No,
like, if anybody who's watching this is interested in like any of the stuff that I do, I would be happy to like explain it in a better and more eloquent manner.
Yeah, that's I'm also trying to shift the topic away from that. But I was just really curious overall because I don't know kind of your history when it comes to
a lot.
There's like science, and then also now you're working at Stanford, and you're clearly like you're extremely passionate about physics.
Yeah, I'm kind of too deep now to like not be. I've invested too many.
Yeah,
I can't change my class.
Yeah, different podcast for another day. Probably we can unpack a little more if people are interested. But I feel like would it be bad to say that I would want to take one for the team and kind of like see it through, and
I would do
and
whatever.
just see what's behind the closed veil.
Yeah, no. See, I don't blame you at all. I would do whatever they tell me. If anyone's listening right now, I'm accepting like offers to join the Illuminati. Like that'd be awesome. If it's like, now the question is like, they'd probably question, why are you so like interested? Would you want to like reveal like what it is like the Illuminati's doing at the cost of your own life, obviously?
Hey, I don't know.
Or would you just indulge in like being a part of the Illuminati?
I think for me, it's mostly like trying to understand the world and how it works, right? Or the human world and how it works. Because I honestly, this concept of Illuminati, like it is fun to talk about, but I think more seriously, I think it exists in like plain sight. Like I think the billionaires, all those people are part of that kind of group where they have extreme influence over society.
Zuckerberg is a lizard. He's a lizard.
And, I mean, whatever they are, You know, they
Human
are
or
able
lizard.
to shape reality the way they want it to. I mean, that's kind of what they're kind of glorified. One of their skills is like reality distortion or whatever. A lot of people glorify billionaires.
They
You
have
know, a lot of people glorify really successful people, but a lot of those people are kind of shapers. They shape their reality to fit exactly how they want to see it. And
Prime example, like Elon Musk, like he has like enough
Yeah.
money and now he can just fund like all the like fun like science projects he wants. He literally got the Thanos reality stone and like, you know, like,
yeah, I mean, and that's the Illuminati. You know, it's the people that have the resources to just shape the world to however they want it to shape, and it's happening like, and those are the people that are reported on. You know what I mean? There's so
People-
much dark money out there. There's so much money that's not reported. So many people out there that you will never hear of in your entire life that will have the ability to influence elections, influence public policy, all without a whisper of their name getting out there. You know, and they're hidden behind layers and layers and layers of
Goals.
protections. So that's just I mean, it can be goals for some people, but that's just like we've never really escaped from the nobles and the serfs. That kind of mentality.
oh yeah,
There's now it's a more of a spectrum. Like I'll admit, like
there's an invisible caste system.
It's an invisible caste system, and the world, I will say, as a whole, has gotten better. You know, I do that in quotation marks because better is, you know, what is that? But like I feel like, yes, I think there's a lot of things that have been democratized thus far, but there's still people literally at the bottom, and like none of us really know what the bottom is because clearly we're talking in this environment, we're not at the bottom. But there is a bottom, like the bottom of human civilization, and then there is the sky high. You know,
And there are no efforts to like reach this equilibrium or like distribute the wealth.
Now we don't recycle. We don't recycle. We don't recycle effectively. Recycling is a big joke as well in general. What's an anime that you feel like has talked about societal problems? Like
One
has hit you
Piece.
hardest?
One Piece.
One Piece.
Literally, like you can drop any topic and like it's been brought up in One Piece. There's so many like pop culture references. They talk about themes of slavery and discrimination, like gender identity, like let me go arc by arc. There's, like literally anything, like overturning like governments and anarchy and like countries being like demolished and like monarchies and politics and friendship and life and how to deal with loss and death. There's topics of like literally anything. It's absurd how many like legitimate life lessons I've gotten from One Piece.
One Piece builds character.
It builds so much character. It's actually embarrassing.
And
Like,
it's entertaining. And
it's
it's a
entertaining.
world where you have pretty much anything goes.
literally anything.
You
Like,
have a main character that has arms that can, or any kind of limbs that can stretch,
just made of rubber.
made of rubber.
He's just made of rubber. There's all kinds of people. One of my favorite stories is actually no, not another time. But it's just like this super minor character, and he has this fully fleshed out backstory that's like legitimately like so sad. And like and he's a bad guy too, and like he's not even like one of the main bad guys. Like he's like a side guy of like the main bad guy of this one arc, and like you're just sitting there just like, wow, Jesus, like this is tough. This is realistic too. Like this could happen in like some fashion, and you're just like sitting there like awestruck and empathizing, and then you snap back to reality, and now the character you were rooting for like is fighting that person, and you're just like, you know, conflicted, and like it's just done really well because that happens. You know, I think a lot of good stories like make you empathize with the antagonist.
Yep.
But like this was like done in a way that was like this wasn't even the main antagonist. Like this was such like a minor character, and the way it was presented was really, really good. And God, shout out to One Piece.
No, I mean, it's insane how much character development stories give you as a reader or as the audience. For me, my answer to that question would be Code Geass.
That's fair.
Code Geass, I think it's definitely a much more literal representation of like society and everything, not hidden behind kind of like a pirate adventure and stuff like that. But Code Geass is basically about a kid that is officially the prince of the ruling empire, but was cast away. And it's all about him basically launching a rebellion against his father, the emperor. And yeah, it's insane. Like the amount of, it's one of those stories, I watched all of it over COVID. It's one of those stories where I can tell that if you don't stick with it, you can get bored pretty quickly. Because I feel like while all the details are happening, it looks as if like, okay, how do all of these connect? And, it just starts getting like, even Game of Thrones is better. At least like it gets to the punchline like quicker. But Code Geass, literally everything culminates in like the last episode.
Yeah.
Like it just like in the last episode, everything becomes crystal clear. All that work that you did of just like why did you do all these things? Why were there all these arcs and scenes? All of it culminates into that one last episode, and you're like, wow, like this is amazing.
Those are rewarding.
Yeah, and I feel like for me, stories with an ending are the best. Yeah, I don't like the current anime kind of, or kind of in general the current shows in Western and Eastern, like just overall, like a lot of them are just trying to become franchises in a way, like never ending.
Walking Dead. They should have ended that a while ago.
Yeah, like I feel like stories are good when they end. When you know that they have an ending.
This is why Breaking Bad's just gonna go down in history as like one of the greatest of all time. It ended like at the right time. It was good, and people like will miss it.
Yeah, like even House had a good ending. And even and it dragged on. There's tons. Every single episode was something different, but it even had this overarching story, and it even ended kind of beautifully. I also enjoy when you start to empathize with the antagonist, because to me, to put it bluntly, good evil, like that's too black and white. It's like there's always going to be something that is nuanced about everything, and there's always going to be a reason behind why someone's the way they are.
And I think good and evil is just like always totally subjective. I mean, we have in nature as well as society majority rules, and whatever majority of people like have a consensus on is what's going to decide what's good and evil. But if majority of people are like, no, this is fine, then it's going to be classified as good, and that has changed a lot over the years. And just to go back to One Piece for a little bit, there's a character who said like there was a war going on, and one of the other characters was like, justice will prevail. And he was like, of course it will, because the winners decide who justice is. Like whoever wins rewrites history. They tell who's, the protagonist and who's the antagonist. They're in control of what is good and what's evil. And I mean, it's true. There were a lot of things that were accepted previously that, just aren't anymore.
In the stories though, the hero, the protagonist, whoever it is, like they're the minority, right? It takes so much effort for them to push against it. And you see that happening now too. Like even
underdog story.
Yeah, it's the underdog story. And it's just such a shame that people like they become martyrs. You know what I mean? Like they take on, because they're fighting against the majority. What do you think is going to happen when you fight against the majority? You're going to be shat on. You're going to be destroyed. And I feel like across the spectrum in many fields now, whoever's trying to push the boundaries, there's not going to be like a lot of good stuff written about them. They're going to get a lot of hate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're fighting against the grain, but I don't know. Maybe I'm like a masochist in that sense, but like if I'm passionate about something, I think that's like encouraging that adversity. It's exciting. And it's like, I saw this quote and it was like video games taught me that the more enemies I face means I'm going in the right direction. I was like, that's cheesy. But like, also, there's a little bit of truth to that.
Yeah, that's wise.
Right. Like, yeah, it's pretty dope. And I don't know. It's helped motivate me stay true to myself and not conform to other people's ideologies when there's something that I'm passionate about and I'm trying to communicate, even if it's a hot take. I will stand my ground. That's just the way I am.
What's a food that typically people don't like, but you like?
I fucking hate pineapple on pizza, so no, I'm not going to say that. A food that I like that... I'm sure there's one where I'm like brain farting right now because I eat most things. Oh, I like Brussels sprouts and asparagus. I know people don't like vegetables, but...
asparagus I love.
Mm-hmm.
Brussels sprouts, I can understand why people don't like them.
They
get very like there's some sort of acidic quality to it. I'm not sure if you taste that, but I think when done right, anything you can eat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the joy that I get out of cooking as well. As there's a lot of things that I did not like as a child that like after learning how to like prepare it in the way that I like to eat it, then it becomes something where it's like, oh, like I can eat this.
I used to hate mushrooms.
Oh, really?
And I had a good experience. It changed everything.
Really?
Changed everything. I don't like raw carrots. I mean, I can eat them, but like I'd rather them cooked.
Do you like cooked vegetables over like raw vegetables?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that pretty commonly. Yeah. You have any allergies?
No, I'm the perfect human. Just perfect genes.
One Piece has like really. We're going back to One Piece.
It's. What can I say? It's. What was I gonna say? What is? Do you have like a favorite food?
I can probably eat like sushi all day. Like good sushi. I could probably eat that all day. Japanese food in general, I just like love. It's hard to not say that I'm a weeb, but like maybe I am. But I just like really, I just find the flavors to be really compatible to my palate. It's like it can be light, it can also be really heavy, like ramen and stuff. Just extremely flavorful, and you don't have to be like eating tons of meat and stuff like that to deliver that. Not that I'm against meat or anything. I'm just saying that like, especially once you start cooking, you realize like how much of a mess it is to even cook with meat. Fucking oil flying everywhere and all that kind of stuff. So like I always try to like simplify my cooking. So like
meat doesn't have to be in every dish.
Meat doesn't have to be in every dish. That's what I learned much later on, probably like 2 years ago.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because I dated a
carnivore.
A string.
No,
I dated a string of like flexitarians, vegetarians. Mostly like people that didn't like meat, basically. And I loved meat. Going into those relationships, and then it made me. I still love meat.
Yeah.
I won't give that up, but I do kind of understand like now that vegetables, if prepared in the right way and everything, like are extremely delicious. I've never had a distaste for vegetables, but I do feel like it's hard to like I feel like you could challenge yourself and be like, it's hard to like not pick the meat dish. Like everything has meat in it. If you're doing takeout, it's chicken and rice or chicken whatever or beef whatever.
Right.
It's hard to be like, I'm just going to eat vegetables for this meal.
I feel like it's easier to do when you're cooking than
to do when you're cooking. When you're ordering though, it's hard.
I'm getting meat. I'm getting meat.
Oh, once you do it though, once you do try it, you're like, oh, I'm actually kind of full from this. Like I didn't think that I could get full. Because I feel like with some people, especially I think men, especially like it's like, oh, like, I gotta eat meat. It's gotta fill me up. It got protein. It's got all this other stuff.
Yeah, I feel like now I just really pursue chicken because of like the protein. That's like I know that like there are vegetarian options and like vegan options that'll like fill me, and that tastes good. And like I'm not opposed to that. My sister's vegan, and like I've eaten plenty of vegan stuff before, and it's like fine. But I just now if I'm getting takeout, it's like chicken. Like just. I think of it now because I'm trying to like from like rock climbing and Muay Thai. I'm trying to get gains, you know, and like
Yeah.
and chicken is just like a really like good way of getting protein, quick protein. Red meat is not something I like to eat a lot. I mean, I'll eat it. I don't have a problem with it, and I love it. But typically, if I'm given the choice, it's like chicken's cheaper. It's like better for you.
Yeah. I mean, you are doing, extremely physical activities.
Yeah, I'm actually sore right now. I went to Muay Thai last night, and then I like had a long night of drinking. So like, I have no idea how I'm conscious.
When did you pick up all this like Muay Thai and what was the other one?
Rock climbing.
Rock climbing. When did you pick both of them up?
So I started rock climbing when I got to college. So it was like August of 2017. And so it's been like 3.5 years now, something like that. I really love that. Like if you thought I loved One Piece, I mean I do, but like I just rock climbing, it's so great.
One Piece and rock climbing.
Yeah, that's all there is to me. It's like, but yeah, no, rock climbing it's great. It's problem solving with your body. I know a lot of physics people like, or a lot of people in STEM in general like rock climbing. It's a way to get in shape. It's a physical activity. It's a full body workout, and it's like geared towards the minds of people who like puzzles, which is
right.
Pretty
every
dope.
rock is a puzzle on how to grasp onto it.
Right. It's like, it sounds like easy enough, like just go up, but there's like actually a lot of like technique and like skill that like goes into it. It's way, like you'll look at some things. I still even don't have like good eyes for it. Like I'll look at something and I'll be like, oh, that looks fine. And I'll touch it and I'll fall off immediately.
I got caught into a YouTube rabbit hole of there's like these rock climbing speed contests.
Yeah, the speed
or whatever,
competition.
and I started watching it, and you just see these like girls like going super fast up these things.
Oh yeah.
And then there's like also ones where it's not about the speed, but it's just about getting the points.
You're right.
And they're hard. They're really hard to like get a grip on. And it's just a little section basically. And I'm like, damn, like people do this, like, and it's like a whole thing.
So it's actually an Olympic sport now, circa this year. And there's 3 disciplines. There's sport, bouldering, and speed. So speed is this uniform wall. It like looks the same anywhere in the world. It's the same exact stone, same exact height, and it's just how fast can you get to the top and like hit the buzzer. And then bouldering is a shorter wall. You don't have like any harnesses or ropes. It's maybe anywhere from like 10 to like 13 feet. And when you fall on like a crash pad, and you just try to make it to the top. And it's typically, because it's shorter in duration, they're more intense moves and they're more difficult and dynamic. And then there's sport climbing, which is the rope. So typically it's lead climbing. So as you go up, you like clip yourself in, and it's like this pulley system that like you set like how high the pulley is the further you go. And it's, definitely more endurance based, but the harder you get, it can be like a bunch of like bouldering problems in succession. And so I do mainly sport climbing and bouldering. I've done speed before. I'm okay at it, but like it's weird because it's really exhausting. It's the most dynamic out of all of them. Yeah. It's the most intensive. So like I remember one time, like typically when I climb, I have like 2-hour sessions, whether it's lead or bouldering or speed. I mean, bouldering or sport or whatever. But with speed, I tried speed climbing one day, and I was exhausted after like 15 minutes. I was like down.
It's explosive energy.
It's explosive, and like I just never trained those parts of my body for climbing.
For climbing, but for One Piece.
And then with Muay Thai, I started that 2 months ago. So when I got here.
Oh, cool. So it's just something new that you're doing.
Yeah, I've done martial arts before. I've done karate and capoeira, but I always wanted to do Muay Thai because it's like the coolest. It's like super brutal.
And then what's the focus? Like legs?
It's actually it's called the like art of 8 limbs or something like that, or like 8 parts, because it focuses on fists, elbows, knees, and kicks. Yeah. And it's just I don't know how much you know about it, but like so Krav Maga is treated as like the most effective form of self-defense, and then Muay Thai is the most effective offensive martial arts. And like the way people train for it is just so rigorous. Like lots of running, lots of like just really brutal attacks, like elbows to the face and kicks. And you're supposed to train your like shins by like hitting them against like really tough objects. So you create these micro fractures so that when your shin grows back, it grows back stronger. And then you can just kick things like without feeling anything. There are a lot of Muay Thai people who just like kick like telephone poles and like full power, and they're just unscathed. And like I have like a bamboo stick that like I try to just like hit my like shins with, like get them. They're not like calluses, but like just getting the bones like stronger.
I can just see you in the bedroom and like, what is wrong with this?
Right? It's intense though. It makes me feel like really like committed and dope. Like
I've seen like the fists of like a fighter, and it's like my fists are it's a baby's fist. Like compared to someone like that, like that person can destroy you. I won't feel a thing.
I also want to give off that energy. Like all the people I've ever fought just always like more or less underestimated me until like just recently. Because now I feel like because like before college I did not have this physique by any means. I was very much a twig, but now like people I guess treat me with a little bit more like, for lack of a better word, respect, or like inherent respect when they like if I'm like sparring against someone, or even if you just see me on the street. It's like before it'd be like, oh, I'd kill him, and now even if I had martial arts experience, and like now I'm like, they're like, I don't know, and like I just want to get to that point where like I don't know, if you see me, I'm like in a t-shirt or something and like jeans, so people would be like, he'd beat my ass. Like I want to give off the energy.
Yeah, I'm still a twig, so I wouldn't know. I think my body, from what I've known, having lived in it for 25 years, is it is athletic. Like I think my body is athletic, and I have a high metabolism, and I've always been able to at least do like if it's a new sport or whatever. I've always had sort of some of the foundations to like get off to a good start. Fighting is one thing that like I'm not like a manly man, or whatever. But fighting is one of those things that attracts me because of what you said, which is even with like rock climbing and stuff, which is like there's like a puzzle element to it. I think like there's like a real strategy thinking around how you're placing this. It's not all about hitting your knees and trying to get it all hard
it's very physical centric, but there are a lot of like very beneficial like mental aspects to it. Like my Muay Thai instructor like was telling me like he owes his life to Muay Thai because like it's helped him get out of like a lot of like tough spots and dark times, and it's very disciplining. Martial arts in general, there's a lot of discipline behind it, and like thinking and consistency and practice like are just good for you in general.
I also think it's very intimate because you are you are fighting this person that you probably don't have beef with.
Yeah.
Right? But you're clearly both going at each other, and I think in that sense, I haven't experienced it yet, but I would love to try, because I do think that there's some sort of camaraderie when it comes to that, which is like we are both trying to get better at this discipline, at the skill, but at the same time, like we're just going at each other and killing each other.
That's a really great feeling. Like I have some friends like who growing up, like I would get into like fights with, and we would just be like wrestling, and then like we would just tire out, and then we would like be over our like beef or whatever. Like we would just get over it, and we would be like, nice. Like it's like this mutual like respect, and like it's water under the bridge there.
That kind of sportsmanship.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the word that I'm looking for. Is definitely. I was talking about this on another podcast with a friend where he has kept up with volleyball a lot. But he was talking about how, as you grow older, you kind of like miss all of that competition and teamwork and all that kind of stuff. Like that gets focused into your work. And that's where you kind of find it. But I feel like sports and especially martial arts is a place where it's the most like in your face. Kind of like where you get to experience all of that like in such a short amount of time. Like the moment a punch connects or a kick connects, like you're in it, and you have to either fight or flight.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I really like martial arts and rock climbing because like of the level of like intimacy as well, like you said.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, I really like the things that I get from them individually, and they're things that I wouldn't get from like say like basketball or football or like golf or like I don't know other sports. Like there's something about like yeah, I mean when you're rock climbing with someone and you're like belaying them, their life is in your hands. Like there's also like a lot of trust there, and like or if you're bouldering with someone, like you're attacking like this mutual like problem. It's kind of like I don't know, just it's a different like structure than like team sports where it's like two teams like clashing. It's like maybe like a team versus this one problem or two entities clashing. It's like particle accelerators.
Oh, wrapping it all the way.
It's all like Code Geass. It's all coming together.
That's so much of life, right? So much of life is kind of just like a reflection of you, right? And like I watched that movie Solo, the documentary Solo, where he solos Free Solo.
Yeah.
And like just like I even went there. I even went there and saw like El Capitan, and I'm like, that's like and the part that fascinated me the most was the filming, his crew that he had with him. Like that, not only are they doing it, but they have cameras as well. That's mad respect. Like, but at the same time, like that's such a, like it's so hard not to romanticize that. It's like such a beautiful kind of art. You're like everything's just an art form in some degree, and One Piece is just amazing.
It's the ultimate art form, and.
But no, I mean, just to wrap things up, I think one thing that I've tried to ask people at the end is, what are you grateful for?
My lens. I feel like I've lived a very holistic. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but my life has allowed me to see the world in a certain lens that I feel like has optimized the amount of like experiences and perspectives that I could even like comprehend. And I like empathizing with people, and I like experiences where I don't have to experience them for myself to learn something from them. And I feel like I'm really thankful for just being me and having my lifestyle. I wouldn't really trade it for anything else.
I vibe with that a lot. I think having your own perspective is something that is underappreciated sometimes in society.
I just think mine's the best. I just am the ultimate human. I live at the same time as One Piece. Like it's.
All right, if you haven't gotten it already, this is basically just an advertisement for One Piece. Watch it.
Or read it.
Watch it and read it.
Preferably read it.
Preferably read it. They probably have a lot of filler episodes.
It actually has some of the least amount of filler because the world building is so huge. They can't really make like filler because
I gotta read it. You've convinced me. All of this has also convinced me to like give it a try.
Good. It's so good. Yes, please. That would make me happy.
Like warning, One Piece has like 1,000 chapters plus. So if you want something to kill time with enjoyably and learn everything to do with life, that's made this man so cool.
That's so awesome. If you think I'm awesome, I owe it all to One Piece.
He is One Piece.
I am One Piece.
Because of One Piece.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks so much, Emmanuel. It was great to have you.
Thank you.
And we'll do this another time. I feel like there's so much more to you than just One Piece.
Than just One Piece.
There's 2 Piece.
There's 2 Piece. Maybe even 3.
All right. Awesome. End it here.
Cool. Oh shit! It's already. Is your friend here?